I'm the Dean of the David B. O'Malley College of Business, and I would love to welcome you to Thursday of our third annual Business of Flight Week and first ever Week of Giving. Right now, we are excited to welcome a panel of individuals from Garmin, many of whom are our alumni, which we love. And we will get started with that. So please give them a warm welcome and let's enjoy the panel.
So hello, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm JD Frederick, a senior here in the College of Business. And today I'm joined by, we have Phil Straub, the VP at Garmin. We have Kyle, we have Ryan, we have Lee, we have Michael, who interns, one of our students here on campus. We have Courtney, who's the head of talent acquisition and recruitment. And so today we're going to go over a few questions about what it's like to work at Garmin, what Garmin has, their vision for the future, and about everyone's history between Embry-Riddle and the connection between Garmin and our campus. And so I want to open up with Phil. Phil has the background in engineering, currently functions as a businessman within Garmin and has been with Garmin for around 20 years now. And we want to learn about his experience working with Garmin and what he has to share for us.
All right, so JD, I think maybe you want a little bit of my background. So if that's good, I'll run through that. And I can get long-winded, so you nudge me along if we're getting behind. So I always say, you know, other people influence your lives in so many different ways. And my mom influenced me, my dad influenced me. I think from the aviation and engineering perspective, my dad was the primary influence. He was an electrical engineer, but he was also a private pilot. And he bought a little Cessna 150 before I was born. Schools used to fly them a year and sell them. And then people would buy them and, you know, use them personally. So I got to grow up flying this little Cessna 150 with my dad. And I think that spark for aviation kind of was born from doing that. And truth be told, we actually had a family farm where he grew up on as a farm kid. And so my experience was actually flying out of this little cow pasture where we had crisscrossing runways. And it was just the greatest thing. I always remember we'd take off, and believe it or not, you would think the cows would like the tall grass. They always migrated to the runway where we mowed. And we would have to go back and do a low pass and shoo them off before we could land again. It's just cool little things like that that kind of sparked that interest in aviation. Him being an engineer and my mom was an educator, I kind of followed that path of engineering. And well, I should say, first of all, I learned to fly in high school. And I actually rented an airplane to do that on my own and paid for it as I could go. But as I went into college, I thought, I'm going to follow this engineering path. And I could go a lot of different ways, but I was saying I was paying for my flying as well as college. I was starting out washing airplanes at the Kansas City downtown airport. So kind of school of hard knocks that way. I remember, you know, being the winter and the line guys would open the hangar doors and I'm trying to wash these airplanes with the water almost freezing on there. And then I graduated to doing line service as I got old enough. But then in parallel, I'm doing my flying and I got my flight instructor certificate my sophomore year of college. And so then I started flying out of Kansas City downtown while I was going through an engineering program to the University of Missouri, who had a program in the Kansas City area. And so I just kind of kept going along that way, kind of a non-traditional college experience. But by the time I graduated with my electrical engineering degree, I probably had given, I don't know, I probably had close to 2,000 hours of flight time. And I don't know, probably I'm sure over 1,000 hours of flight instruction given or somewhere around that point. So it was a fork in the road for me. Do I go in an airline path or flying path, or do I go in an engineering path? And I ended up choosing the engineering path going into Garmin. And you're too kind. I'm actually a little bit older than that. This is going to be my 30th year at Garmin. So it's been an incredible experience. Let me pause for just a second and say, that's kind of what got me into aviation and engineering. I can transition and talk a little bit about condense the 30 years at Garmin. But any comments or questions at this point?
From the crowd? Well, Phil, since we're short on time, I wanted to talk about Garmin's products and services and the regions you're targeting for growth here, especially over the next 5 to 10 years. If that's more specific between private aviators, working with the airlines, or expanding into new regions around the world.
I'd say our goal is really, if it flies, generally we want to be involved with it. Um, Regionally, I'll kind of briefly maybe go on a direction or tangent you haven't thought of a lot, but I think in the United States, and I'm sure Embry-Riddle has a global international student body footprint. I think one of the unique things about the United States is that we've seen aviation as core infrastructure to the country. It's a large country, and especially the western part of it, short of the coast, more sparsely populated, farther apart. So when you look around this country, I think there's over 6,000 airports. And I say, like, look at Iowa, and you have these little communities of 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people, and they have an airport associated with them. And so they connect, people together. And that's what aviation is all about. It's connecting people, whether it's personal travel, family members, whether it's business, or the combination of both. And what I find is where aviation thrives more so is where the economy, the people look at aviation as a key infrastructure. So I think we still look at it that way in the US. I think in some parts of the world, they don't view aviation quite that way, and it tends to be relegated more towards, I hate to say it, some affluent users for business aviation. And we're even seeing, just from environmental concerns, some challenges about airline travel as well that way. So I say aviation is very global in nature, it's standardized, but where you see the most growth going is where they look at aviation as a key growth to the infrastructure. And believe it or not, China has actually said general aviation is a key, growth to their economy and connecting the continent. So don't know how that will evolve, but we do see a lot of training activities going there. There's a lot of Garmin equipped airplanes flying there. And then obviously at different ends, you see advanced air mobility, very short range transportation. So we're doing investments in that area. And we're also investing in commercial air transport. And there's different aspects. A lot of people think of us just as avionics, but we have a lot of services that are applicable and help commercial airplanes take off and land safely every day.
Great. Well, Phil, you rolled right into where I wanted to go with this, and you speak upon working internationally, both in the United States and foreign countries. How do you work with the compliance and regulations of these different companies to ensure that Garmin is always compliant and providing products and services to these individual countries that meet their regulatory standards?
Okay, well, that's a great question. And I always say, whether it's domestically with the US, the FAA, or internationally, it's always a sense of cooperation. And I know companies will say this, but I truly mean it. Safety is never, you never compromise on safety. And where sometimes there's differences, is differences of opinion of how you achieve those safety objectives. But for us, it's always been a very collaborative approach of how we do things. And just for awareness, from a certification standpoint, there's kind of like 4 what we call states of designs that are recognized as having a lot of experience. And the other countries a lot of times refer and rely heavily on that. So that would be the United States, Canada, Europe, and Brazil. So FAA, TCCA, ANAC Brazil, and EASA. And so we partner with each of these organizations. And in Europe, we have boots on the ground, liaisons working, with EASA in Cologne to help communicate, facilitate. We have active projects going, and we always try to bring them in. What I find is, over the past 30 years, and I learned this from our founder, Gary Burrell, he taught me very well in this, that whether it's the FAA, whoever it is, they don't like to come in and, quote, certify things in the end. We need to bring them in as partners in the beginning in the design of what we're doing, especially with things like human factors and system safety. Making them part of the design process is so much more effective than doing all that work behind closed doors and say, certify this. I mean, you can imagine how you would feel if you're on the other side of that. So I think that's been a key strategy for how we approach regulators wherever they are in the world.
Great. So I think it's an arguable claim that if you have Garmin equipment on your aircraft, you are trying to achieve safety. And I would make the claim that if you do have Garmin equipment on your aircraft, it makes you a safer pilot. For a private pilot or low-cost carriers, how do you make your technology affordable to improve this sense of safety and security across the industry?
That's another great question. So, you know, there, as I mentioned, with these major states of design, to little different degrees, they all recognize this concept of a safety continuum. And what that means is for a small recreational airplane, you know, a Cessna, a Piper, a Cirrus, 2-seat, 4-seat, whatever, low performance, there's a understanding that the safety objectives there aren't the same as a commercial air transport, Airbus 380, Boeing, you know, 787, something like that. We have to apply the regulations in a scalable way. And they also recognize that when people are paying for a commercial service to be flown from one place to another, whether that's charter, business aviation, or scheduled air carrier operations, there's a higher expectation as well. So it's never to say we're unsafe at one area versus the other, but what that allows us to do is apply different approaches to certification and system safety with, say, a light fixed gear airplane than what we might do with a large transport airplane. And another aspect that's unique with Garmin is I feel like we try to leverage the breadth of what we do. So even though I said that, and I'll give you a particular example, the FAA or cert bodies recognize software design assurance levels as being essentially level E. Think of that as in-flight entertainment, no effect if it doesn't work, no safety effect. And then level A being catastrophic, which could be likely loss of the aircraft or people and passengers on board. So we think of these levels A through E, highest to lowest criticality. But what we found at Garmin, serving a broad market from light airplanes up through really air transport, that it's frankly more cost effective for us to develop core libraries and things to that highest level A software, if it's needed level A. And then you have lighter aircraft like the fixed gear 4-seat airplanes that benefit from a lot of that software that we do anyways. So different strategies, different approaches, again, never compromising on safety, but applying those means and objectives different to achieve that, if that makes sense.
Great. Well, Phil, last one for you here. If you had to give me a sales pitch about the competitive advantage of Garmin compared to other avionics companies and other companies within the aerospace career, how would you sell me?
Well, you know, I saw some of your comments where I'm going to tie it back to that relentless pursuit of innovation. And I sometimes pause when I say that, because who doesn't say they're competitive, you know, or we're innovative, and, you know, they're not just catchphrases, but they really are who we are as a company. I know there's business majors in here as well, right? And so you probably know financials of companies somewhat. If you look at the aviation R&D spend as a percentage of sales, we spend over 30 cents of every dollar we take in on an engineer, or I'll say it differently, on R&D. So that's a huge commitment to R&D. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say most companies are probably 5–10%. Maybe some of your high-tech companies get into the 10 to 15% range, but that's a lot of spend on R&D. So we're constantly challenging ourselves to come out with new features, new capabilities that drive safety, drive capability. And folks, you know, like the panel you have there with Brian and Lee, they're the folks who are really driving that technology and capability, and I think and I hope have a lot of independence to do those type of things. And last comment on that, I always say that what's tough about, I mean, we have so many engineers doing so much hard work, and what's hard is you can never measure the accidents that were prevented, right? You can only measure the accidents that happened. And I tell everyone, you have to look around and be very proud or satisfied that you are saving lives, you are bringing business colleagues back together, families back together every day. I don't know if I can say every day, right? Because of the work and the safety things that you're doing. And maybe last comment on that, I started flying in I got my private in 1987. I got my CFI in 1990. This is before maybe some people knew what GPS was, but not many. I mean, it just wasn't around at that point. I've taught many NDB approaches. Actually, I love teaching NDB approaches as a flight instructor. But I can't tell you, I mean, you really have to go through that almost 40 years now of aviation to appreciate just how much that safety level has improved through situational awareness, moving maps, TAWS, synthetic vision, solid state AHRS. I have this tagline that friends don't let friends fly iron gyros. There is no reason to ever fly an iron gyro anymore, not when the technology is this accessible to everyone. So I'm sorry, I'm probably rambling at this point. I'm not even sure if I answered your question. Let me hand it back to you.
So
Put me
there's
back on.
plenty that Garmin does to innovate and continue to stay ahead of the competition in the aerospace industry.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more. So very scary. Some of these near instant, accidents going on. JFK at Austin wasn't, or Austin, San Antonio, whichever it was. Now I'm drawing a blank on the camera. But there's some near misses going on. Do you realize right here and now? And I'm probably announcing something Kyle doesn't want me to announce yet, but I'm going to do it because we've already certified TSO'd a function that uses ADS-BN called runway occupancy awareness. So we will highlight on synthetic vision where we put the runway of the airplane as you're coming in on approach, and on your moving map, an indication of an occupied runway at that point. We'll give visual alerts, we'll give oral alerts, and our team has actually played back the JFK scenario through our runway occupancy awareness algorithm. And I could watch this video show us what I'm seeing on the PFD for alerts, what I'm seeing on the moving map display for alerts. It is so cool. And I get so excited as an engineer and as a pilot using this stuff that these type of things make a meaningful difference for aviation safety.
Great. Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
Kyle. Got to beat to the punchline.
You're great. Doing the marketing for us.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I'd like to expand now to our panel here in person. We have Kyle and Lee, who are both graduates of Embry-Riddle. And I wanted to first ask you both to give your experience about Embry-Riddle and how this university prepared you for industry, prepared you for Garmin, and what connection you see coming back of how our students should be growing and innovating to make it an impact immediately in Garmin.
Well, I can start. So I graduated back in 2006 from the program of Master of Software Engineering. So I could say that the program prepared me pretty well because we had an emphasis on real times and real-time systems and mission systems. So what we do with Garmin, what I really love Garmin is that we work with devices, and then basically the preparation that I had over here had a good impact because it prepared me for the process, it prepared me for the life cycle of the product, and it also allowed me to. I always love coding. So what I love about Garmin is that Garmin is a very technology-oriented, innovative company. So you get the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of those areas. So that is something that really attracted me, and I think it's something that Embry really put an emphasis on that.
Great. Yep. I think for me, first and foremost, I got an awesome education in the classroom. But I think that the perspective that you get on the industry by attending Embry-Riddle is paramount. You can go into the student union and you can sit at a table with an engineer, with a business person, a pilot, maybe a human factors major. You can look at the aviation industry from a holistic view. You can really see what everyone's perspective is, how they're applying their knowledge, their education in the classroom here, and bringing it all together at a place like the student union while you're eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich, right? I think it's kind of neat to get all those perspectives here, but it's also the connections that you make, not only in the classroom, but with folks like ourselves in the industry after we graduate, right? We go speak in a lot of institutions, we recruit from a lot of institutions, and at the end of the day, we don't visit very many that are like Embry-Riddle, where folks, not unlike ourselves from Garmin, travel to come meet with the students and bestow, what we've learned and learned both practically working in the industry, but also what we learned in the classroom and sharing it with you guys. So I think Riddle instilled those values within me. And then it's great that companies like Garmin let us kind of come out and speak to you guys and inspire you to work in the same positions that we do.
Talking about inspiring the students, Michael on the panel as well is one of our COE students here at Embry-Riddle who did an internship One internship? One internship, and just found out he's accepted a full-time position at Garmin come this summer. Right. So Michael, you can tell the students here and Garmin, do you feel Embry-Riddle has prepared you, and how has Embry-Riddle prepared you? And are you excited about your future at Garmin?
Yeah, Embry-Riddle does a good job of allowing you to like problem solve through experiences. And that applies well to when you actually work in the field. And then just Garmin in general, I am extremely excited to go back. I had an amazing time over the summer. I met some amazing people. Kansas City in general was, I've never been to the Midwest. I'm an East Coast boy, but Kansas City, I definitely found a home there. And I'm extremely excited to go back.
Great. So Courtney, you're integral in the recruitment process for Garmin. When you come to universities and recruitment events, what are key attributes you're looking for in the students and the candidates that you have seen had success in Garmin and moving through the company?
I would say, so yeah, I'm a university recruiter. I'm not the head of my team. I just like to clarify. I was like, definitely, I'm one of many university recruiters at Garmin, but I focus on aviation and then support a lot of schools. And when we're looking on campus, we hire about 300 to 320 interns every summer. We have part-time interns throughout the school year as well, because we have offices at some universities. But the thing that we're really looking for at Garmin is, we want people that are wanting to jump right in. I would say, Michael could probably attest to this. We really want the student that, goes and does personal projects. We like tinkers. We want, engineers that want to, jump right in and do the work. And also we're looking for folks that are involved in clubs as well as like personal projects. And Garmin, we have a ton of passionate engineers. If, coding is not your passion, if aviation is not your passion, we have other segments as well. But we want people that want to do the type of work that we do. So we have a lot of associates. I would say our interns get a lot of exposure to our program too. Garmin, I would say, also is unique as for a tech company, anyone's willing to answer a question. I think we get a lot of feedback from our interns that if you're there to learn and ask questions and grow as an engineer, we're the company to do that in.
I would also just like to point, like say one more thing. When I was an intern over the summer, even though I was in the aviation division of Garmin, I got to see all divisions of the company. Like I went in submarine, wearables. Like you interact with those people because they're other interns, and you get to see not just aviation, which is really cool. I love aviation, I'm gonna be in aviation, but it was also cool to see how Garmin is in other fields as well.
And I think one more thing I'd like to add is that Embry-Riddle focuses a lot on real industry experience. So I would say that some of my projects, my senior projects, we constructed nice, devices. So that kind of translates directly to what we do, because we innovate and we do everything. It's more than just coding. You have designing, you have requirements, so the whole life cycle. So I think that's something that during my experience here is something that I got exposed to.
And our interns also, and as a new grad engineer, our interns do get to do real work. That's something that we really pride ourselves on, is you get a mentor, you get to do real work. So you're working on real things. You may not see it in the aviation life cycle in your summer, but you're not on an intern project in silo in a room where you're, working on something that will never see the light of day. You get to see real things happen.
Great. So the next question is for Brian and Lee specifically. Here in the COB, we've taken a focus on data analytics, and we have degree programs that are building up based upon industry recommendations of focus in analytics. From an engineer's perspective, can you discuss the role that data analytics and the machine learning plays in Garmin's development of new products or the implementation of existing products?
Sure. I think the interesting thing about the industry is there's just so much data being generated. And the big question is, what do you do with this? How do you make it useful and meaningful? And there's a lot of ways people are trying to go about that and make that come in. So we are taking a very measured approach, something that, I hope you heard while Phil was talking was, this is a very personal industry and we try to take a very personal approach. Flying dads 150 off of the pasture, or, going out to events like this and meeting with people who are flying and understanding. And some of those stories can speak just as much as the data can. So marrying those two things together as we are looking at it, as we, are able to pull information and say, what does the data see? We got that qualitative and quantitative pieces tying together as we're trying to make decisions and decide, okay, what does the market need? What are customers looking for? What will be more safe? Pulling those two things together is honestly one of the more tricky things, making meaning out of the data. And one great way to do that is tying that data to stories.
Lee, do you have anything?
Yeah, so basically data analytics are I would say they're very important because a lot of our products are based on, I would take an example, for example, you do performance flying, you will need the data analytics that comes in. They're based on real flights. So you take the data and that data allows us to create a product and personalize it for a certain aircraft, for example. So I think it plays an important role in products developments.
So back to you, Kyle, marketing. Garmin, work in aviation, you have to market to international cultures, customs. How does Garmin approach marketing on an international scale to target specific customer segments?
I think, great question. I think first and foremost, we're lucky in aviation. We speak one language and it's English. But marketing wise, we can't just do that. So I'll give you a great example. We do webinars in other languages, French. We have a French salesperson based in the country. We have a German salesperson based in Europe as well. And so we market those webinars and we present those webinars, for instance, in those native languages. But at the end of the day, we're a little lucky to be in this industry, considering that, everyone pretty much speaks English, not just over ATC, but in general. So, that's one component you have to keep in mind here. But I think the other thing too, is that really the international world is an emerging market for aviation, right? The US was first in it. We grew a massive general aviation industry here, as well as the airline side. But Phil mentioned earlier, China is growing in the aviation space. They always have been, not just at the commercial level, but also at the general aviation level. They're building that infrastructure now. And so we're always looking at new ways to expand, not just through digital marketing, but also print advertising and things of that nature too. So it's everything that you've learned in the classroom about how do we reach that consumer and that customer, but then tailoring it to those countries via language or regulatory body as well, right? We have some features that we can maybe use in the US that aren't certified in Brazil by ANAC, aren't certified in Europe by EASA. A great example is something as simple as our wireless card called a Flight Stream 510, not certified in every country, so you can't data link between your phone or your iPad and the flight deck. We've had it in the US for a long time, but they haven't had it in Europe forever because of communication standards and things of that nature. So it hasn't been certified there, so we don't talk about that in Europe like we do in the US. So those regionalities and language barriers exist, and we try to do the best we can to break this down.
All right, so you spoke about different modes of marketing and the messaging and marketing. With your time at Garmin, have you seen a change in the marketing approach? Is it whether from traditional marketing to more of the digitalized modern marketing scheme? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been at the company for almost 3 years, and our marketing deliverables have changed, just the deliverables themselves, but also the way that we message. I think more than ever, showing real life stories through your advertising, through your blogs, through videos, so important. We've grown our ambassador program from when I started 3 years ago, JD, from 3 ambassadors to 16 ambassadors now on social media. Them flying their own airplanes or other airplanes and showing our products through their lens in different ways. It's been extremely rewarding and successful for us. I think the other thing too, user-generated content, UGCs for short. People love to see Garmin pictures and Garmin avionics. If you're a pilot in the crowd, you've probably taken that panel shot flying 172 at Riddle or the DA-42 potentially, or maybe even earlier, the Aero here. Everyone loves to take pictures of the flight deck and share those. But we find that when we get to use your pictures, when you give us the rights to share that image on our social media too, it performs that much better. People know in this day and age, if the imagery that we're using on social or the videos, if they're real, or if our marketing communications team has tailored those. And so the more UGC that we can use from you folks here, flying in the airplane, showing our app Garmin Pilot, showing you're flying up and down the coast here in Florida. They know that it's real. They know that somebody took that picture and they can relate to that because they're doing real flying too. So we try to weave in those real stories as much as we can in our marketing. We've done much more of that in the past 3 years since I've been at the company.
Great. So this next question is open for the panel for whoever wants to take it. A growing trend that we see is more of a concern about privacy and the security of your data. And Garmin collects a ton of data from private aviation. How does Garmin secure that data and promise its customers, that their data is safe and that their personal information is not being used in nefarious ways?
Yeah, let me start off by all of it is opt-in, so first things first, make sure that the consumer is in control of that. And then yes, ever increasing need for security, ways of handling that and approaching that. So, taking a very measured approach and understanding what is the most important pieces to handle first, make sure those are covered, have those bases worked out, and then move on from there. Because you're right, not even just in aviation, but across the entire company. There's a lot of information about you out there, and as a company, we are doing our best to respect that. In a lot of ways, we let you see your data, and we try to only put that where you want to, so you can share it with friends. If you want to do that, like I went for this run, shared with your friends. We're not going to use that. We're not going to sell that information, but making sure that, as we're setting up our servers and our IT infrastructure, that we are putting those safeguards in place. And we, for that reason, we're a very, vertically integrated company in a lot of ways. And so we do a lot of that IT in-house to help make sure that we control that level of safety and security. And there's a lot of reasons we do our own manufacturing, and so you see that mentality and that approach across the entire company. We do our own marketing because we want to make sure that we can tailor it appropriately to our customers. And so security is one of those aspects, and you see that across the company.
Maybe Phil can speak to it, or I guess Phil's no longer with us, but I think one thing to keep in mind too, we report out on our security programs every week too, on a program called, or a meeting called PID, so products in development. We have a cybersecurity team that reports out on that, different levels of products in development, or as we go back through and review. And I think from the marketing side, one thing, a buzzword or a buzz phrase you guys may have heard for the business majors in the room specifically is PII, personally identifiable information. So it's really important that if you see, for instance, an Embry-Riddle airplane flying by today at a 170 or 172, you can see the N number on that airplane, right? We can track it through ADS-B. We know where that airplane went, but I can't identify what pilots were in that airplane. But what we can do is go back and FOIA the FAA, for instance, and get that information on the back end potentially, and then maybe market to a little bit better. So that's one thing that I've tried to bring to the table is how can we get even more data? We talked about data earlier. How can we get even more data? And it even comes down to sometimes having to use the Freedom of Information Act within the United States government to get some additional information on folks. But it always boils down to PII. And so what information we get from the FAA, what will they share? What are their PII rules compared to our PII rules? But I think as you guys go into the field, a phrase that you'll hear a lot is PII. Everyone has different interpretations of it. Everybody has different interpretations of what personal means, what identifiable information means. So keep that in mind going forward. It's not just on the engineering side, it's also the marketing side. When information ethically, and everyone has a different opinion of ethics, what level can we go to really go target potential consumers? And it evolves rapidly. As you know, data, we collect more of it, we want more of it. We have seen a trend at Garmin. We're pretty conservative in how we look at PII, but we try to use it in the best way possible, right? We do need to sell our products, and it's a great way to market them too.
Great. Courtney, back down to you. Garmin has 5 different business segments. I want to focus on aviation specifically because in aviation, it's been a male-dominated industry for decades, really since the inception. What does Garmin do to help improve the diversity of our workforce and the diversity of our industry?
My team's heavily involved in going to national conferences like SWE and Grace Hopper, which are women in tech conferences. We also just had NESME back in Kansas City that we hosted there as well. We partner with school groups across, so any school that has like NSBE, women, software engineers, anything that we do try to connect with those groups as well. So we're on campus all the time trying to connect with those groups. And then we also, when we have interns come into our program, we do have opportunities for a peer resource program where we have our business resource groups, where we have 6 or something now. It's like this women in business forum, we have LGBTQ+, we have veterans, we have CARES, which is for caregivers, people that are caretakers for children or family members. We also have, I'm thinking of any missing, no, I'm missing some. SHIP, no, not SHIP. I'm just trying to think. There's multiple others. So basically our interns can opt into a peer program, see someone that has values like them, looks like them, and have that person be a part of their intern program to have a mentorship, person in the community, everything like that. So we do our best to make sure everyone feels welcome at Garmin as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for improvement. We are not going to say that we're anywhere near where we want to be, but there's opportunities that Garmin's always pushing to improve those numbers.
Great. So this one I'm going to open up to the entire panel. So working with private operators and airlines, how does Garmin, well, firstly market, but then close the sale to integrate Garmin equipment into their aircraft?
It's a great question. I think every OEM, every airplane and program is completely different. I always like to explain it. We see a lot of customers, we're all here for sun and fun, right? So we flew down over the past few days to work the trade show in Lakeland. And I explained that, when they say, hey, how do I pick this product over this one? Or how do I pick Garmin over another one? I say, your panel and your airplane or an OEM looking at the products that we have, it's like an airport. No one is the same, right? Airport layouts are different. The use cases are different. The approaches are different. The FBOs are in different places, and airplanes are all that way too, right? They're all different. Their missions are different. So for us, I think that we tailor our avionics suite specifically to OEMs to what they're looking for. That's one way we try to make the sale right, is build the features that they want to see into their specific software set. For instance, the gentleman to my left can answer that a little better than I, but also in the general aviation world, specifically the retrofit market, we really try to harp on reliability, but also the safety side. We've talked a lot about it today, but then end of product life cycle replacement, right? So there's a lot of products that are 30 and 40 years old that we're still flying with today. And Garmin equipment's expensive. We're not going to lie about that, but it will also last for 30 or 40 years. And it not only brings you more features and functionality, but it enhances safety. Like Phil was saying, solid state AHRS instead of an old gyro vacuum system, or vacuum gyro system rather. We bring that to the cockpit, but it's also going to last for decades. So we try to mold a lot of that together. And again, it depends if it's on the retrofit general aviation side or the forward fit OEM side, and what kind of feature sets that we push forward.
Yeah, I can say that during the process, how we engage with OEMs, we do a lot of demos with OEMs. So OEMs are exposed to technology, they see it, they like it. So really that's what we're trying to do. So air shows or whatnot, we give them a glimpse of that a little bit, in adding to basically to tailoring the system. From my perspective, what I do a lot of configuration of the system actually as part of my job. And our system, in comparison to other systems, is highly configurable, I would say. And we're able to provide changes in a much quicker turnaround time than other companies do. So I think that's a good selling point, competitive advantage that we have in comparison to other companies.
Mhm.
So.
Great. So another question for Brian and Lee, talking about the engineering design process. How does Garmin sustainably and efficiently design new products and then implement them into existing software, or bring new software into existing hardware? How's that process look?
Can I start on this one? Okay, so Phil talked about it a little bit. We're serving a very broad market. So, down on my end, you've got a single seat airplane that someone built in their garage. Maybe the parts came from Home Depot. I'm not sure. All the way up through, Part 25 airliners. That's a massive range. And so the fact that we can take a core software library that fits the needs here and there, and so a big bulk of the development goes across. And it's a great selling point for me to say, hey, some of the features that you're getting are the same things that are auto landing airplanes up here, and I'm bringing that down to you. So my team has the fun role in the company. I always tell my team, like, we are playing Robin Hood. And so, even within aviation, we're stealing the best pieces and ideas, but then I get to go look at marine. Hey, what was that cool thing they did for fish finders? Oh, but wait, this watch over here made that piece of software and that technology, and we're pulling all those things in. So we're really starting to leverage not just the aviation segment of our country, but our golf group and whatever it may be. Automotive OEM is another group, and we can pull all these pieces together. And the fact that the legwork was done for this project over here to serve that market, and we kind of look at that and say, thank you. We'll start there, and then we'll build on it. We'll adapt that to aviation. So starting with that core and pulling in from these other segments of the company is really one way that we can be fast, we can be innovative, because like Phil said, 30% going to engineering is a lot of engineering horsepower. So there's always something cool going on at Garmin if you find the different groups and start pulling those things together. So starting there is a big one. And then, like Lee was talking about, the fact that we can make a system that is configurable and adaptable. We're not starting from scratch. We're building on something reliable and proven, and we're going from there. We're not saying, hey, we'll do this whole new thing. Oh, and we're gonna have to work out all the bugs and kinks. No, we have that proved out. What do you need that's special built on top of that?
Yeah, and basically what we do is we reuse a lot, I would say. In Garmin as a company, we've had a lot of lines of products. I work more with the flighted groups. So basically G1000, G2000, G5000, G3000. You see a commonality to the different products. So we try to reuse those. Like Brian said, we do try to, if we do see that other divisions have similar code or something we can use, we do reuse that and try to put it into our products.
I want to add on to that, because I think there's a product we talked about a little bit before the start of the panel, but Garmin Autoland. So Garmin Autoland is a product that was fielded now in multiple airplanes that in the event of a pilot incapacitation, the airplane will not only aviate, navigate, but also communicate, just like we all do as pilots, to safely get that airplane and the passengers on the ground. Again, in the event of a pilot incapacitation, it's emergency use system only. But I think the cool thing is we looked at what algorithms do we have in the company to figure out where that airplane is going to go. How does it decide the airport that it's going to based on runway length or wind direction? How do we look at how much fuel we have on board to see the airports maybe that are in range? How do we look at terrain in the way? How do we look at weather? How do we look at traffic? How do we communicate with people? And at the end of the day, our car GPS does a lot of that too, right? It looks at the roads that are available, it looks at traffic, it may look at weather. So we can take an algorithm that we maybe developed for a totally different use case that's a non-certified product, right? And a car GPS that you probably have all used. Garmin's brand grew a lot when we came out with the Nuvi GPS, but we can take technology like that and then say, how can we adapt it to aviation to process just different variables? Instead of what roads can we take to get there, what traffic's in the way, we can say, well, what mountains are in the way, and how do we get to another destination? So Garmin, I really like to hit on that point, because it is cool that who would have ever thought that a car GPS would allow passengers in the event of a pilot incapacitation safely get home to their family that night. I think that, that's kind of the spirit of Garmin across the board.
Great. Michael, as a new entrant into the Garmin family, what sold you? Was there something you saw over the summer during your internship, or have you been a lifelong fan of Garmin? How'd they get you?
I'll be honest, I didn't know Garmin had an aviation section, really. I'll be completely honest there. For me, it really was my team. My mentor especially, she was there for anything that I needed throughout my whole summer journey. And then my manager too, he was one of the nicest people I met out there, and I'm really excited to go back to them for that reason.
Right. So Kyle, another marketing and general business strategy question for you. Following the trends and innovations that other companies create, how does Garmin make sure they stay on the leading edge and work either with other companies or in direct competition with other companies to make sure that Garmin products are top of the line?
That's a great question. We invest, like Phil said, 30% of every dollar that we bring in revenue is turned back out in R&D. And so we're always looking for that next thing. We're working on those next products. We're looking to, expand our markets not only globally, but within individual subsegments. For instance, defense, we're growing in the defense world, the commercial aviation world. We're also in a bit of an acquisition mode. We bought Aerodata a few years ago, provides 95% of the takeoff and landing performance data for the regional airlines in the United States. So it's a short answer for a big question to say, we're investing in the R&D side, we're investing in buying companies and technologies, and then working with those OEMs and airframers to see what products are next, but also working with the end users, right? So Brian and I talked a lot on the 2-hour drive over from Lakeland this morning that one of the great reasons that we go to trade shows is to hear back from you guys, the users of our products. What features would you like to see? How are you using it? The way that you use our GTN Navigator is probably different than how I use it in my airplane. The features that you would like to see in your airplane could be different because of the airplane, because of the type of flying you do, adverse to us on the team. And so getting that different perspective through your own lens at trade shows is big too. And we at the end of each day at a trade show, we all meet, we all say, what was the number one question that you were asked today? Was there, a question that came up often, and how can we share that information better? 2, what were some ideas that customers had? And then 3, how can we do it better tomorrow? Both not only at that trade show tomorrow, but also with our products and marketing and sales tactics going forward. So we're always kind of thinking about what's next and investing both in our people to make those decisions and share that information, but also as a business investing in technologies and other companies too.
Great. So I strategically wait for Phil to leave for this question. So for the whole panel, the relationship between employee and leadership within the company and how they inspire you or work with you. You guys speak upon the fluidity between the average Garmin employee and someone in leadership.
Good start. I worked at a different company prior to Garmin, and anytime I needed to reach out to an executive, I had to go through an executive assistant. There was no directly pinging a VP by any means. I talk to VPs daily in my role. I'm an individual contributor, but I can message them on Teams that everyone's available for a question. I would say when Garmin says that we're vertically integrated, they really mean it. Everyone's available, and open door policy isn't, we really do practice what we preach. People are available and they're willing to, and there's no barriers for me to get to someone that I need to communicate with. So, and I would say that our VPs are also, and leaders and directors all across the board are very, willing to answer questions and help us, especially with my team. We have a lot of last minute questions, especially when it comes to hiring. So they're always willing to help. And I would say it's much better than other companies.
So I touched on this a little bit already, but I was super close with my boss. But even my boss's boss, I was just having a casual conversation about Ireland with him, didn't even know he was my boss's boss at the time. And he's just everyone is super down to earth. They're all super genuine. And if you need to reach out to any of the execs, she was saying earlier, you definitely can. I think Phil came and taught a whole bunch of interns at the hangar over the summer. I'm pretty sure he was at our end of summer presentations too. That's just the type of company Garmin is.
Yeah, just adding to that, I would say that leadership is very down to earth. They are more reachable. Just as an example, so actually before coming to here, I happened to walk out. I think it was I've been here one day, right? So yesterday, I came out from the aisle, and actually Phil was ahead of me. So he kind of jumped back and hey, we haven't talked before. And he shook my hand, and we had a little chat. So yeah, that's kind of the type of company that Garmin is. I love my leaders, my team leads. We have a very good relationship. And I would say that they're also engineers. So they are able to fulfill both the team lead portion of it, but they're also very technical. So whenever, say, I'm not in the office or some emergency arises, they're very capable and they're able to jump in to solve the issues.
Yeah, I could say more of the same.
Everyone agrees.
I think one thing about Garmin that I didn't realize before I went there is you show up to our campus and it's multiple buildings. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. Our headquarters is quite impressive on scale and size. But I think the cool thing is once you get inside the walls, it feels like a small company. It still has that small business kind of personality per se in a good way. Meaning that, hey, when we're all in the lunchroom, you can see our executives. For instance, our CEO still gets all of our aviation sales team reports. We have to turn in a weekly report. It's maybe a page or two long of just what happened that week for you, how your sales numbers looking, what do we learn in the field, competitive insights, things that nature. And Cliff Pimble, our CEO, reads each of those reports every week. And he may even drop a comment in a Word document and send it back through the team and say, why are we doing this? Or how are we doing this? Or here's his input on how we can do it better. So from the top all the way down, they're very engaged. And I think the other thing too is Garmin people are Garmin people. They're wonderful people. I feel like Courtney and the team over on the recruiting side, we do find awesome individuals. We all share passions and interests, but we're also all coming at it from the practical use case side. Brian and I both own airplanes, and we're selling and engineering our products. And folks that go to Embry-Riddle are much the same, right? We all have that same core shared passion of aviation in many cases, and it resonates within the walls of Garmin well too.
Great. Well, I'd like to open up the panel to anyone in the audience today if they have any questions for our members specifically across the board. Quiet crowd, quiet crowd. That's your thing.
Same with a lot of engineers. So how do we do a better job of bridging the gap between what the engineers are doing and what our business folks are doing? How can we bring that collaboration into the classroom?
Brian, do you want to start?
I would love to start with that question. I've touched on it a couple times, but relationships, just introducing those, students. It makes sense that there's, the building, the engineering building and the business building. Like, how do you have, I've seen here that you have some classes here and some classes over there. That's a first step, just like shaking those hands. The fact that I try to get out and make sure I go interact and just know Kyle's name and where his office is. Like, that's a big step, making sure that piece is important. So as you bring that into the classroom, just highlighting, okay, here's yes, the engineering life cycle, but also remember, you've got deadlines. You need to pay your people. How are you going to fund this project? Bringing those to your engineers. And a great way to do that is, all right, engineers, work with this team. Let's make a business plan off of your senior project. And can you bring those two together and just get them talking, get them knowing, oh, there are other people here, and in college, you think you know everything as you're graduating. I sure did. I was ready to take on the world. And then you get to the real, out into business, like, okay, starting over from the bottom, learning from there. But if you know to start collaborating with people, fun fact, the business world is a big group project. So if you don't like group projects now, you've got something coming to you. Start your own company, is my advice at that point. And so just, emphasizing those more and making sure that instructors from engineering and business are putting those students together in the same room. Maybe it doesn't turn into a full-fledged project, but they've had a conversation about it.
Yeah, I could add to that when you're in school, you tend to see the world much smaller. So like engineers, business. I would say in the role that I'm doing, I'm exposed to a little bit of that because we talk to customers and you need to be able to make your point soundly, but also you're able to talk to them. And there's where the relationships, being able to talk to them. Sometimes you're in those meetings and they're not engineering people. They're, for example, a program manager. So you have to be able to adjust your language to that, to your audience, whoever you're speaking to. And I think that's where a good gap comes in.
Any other questions?
So regarding marketing, you mentioned R&D earlier. Let's say you guys have a new product for whatever field. What goes into deciding how to market it? You can't market every single product the same. So it's like formally you guys use, there's like months and months of like working together. This could do that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the easiest answer or the easiest way to explain it is it depends. There's not a real formula that we use at Garmin on how to market a product. We see so many subcategories of products, right? So we talk to defense customers, which are a lot of government contracts. The marketing is totally different there than it is the commercial airlines, which don't really directly buy our products. They buy it through an OEM that the engineering team has worked with to create that product. On the aftermarket side, we may market those products differently because you can go to a Garmin dealer and install them in your own airplane or a fleet of airplanes, not unlike we see at Embry-Riddle. So that's a little different. I think to give you a little light on how we come to market a product, it starts with communication with engineering. So engineering has told us for years that a new product is coming. We brief on it every Tuesday in a product and development meeting for hours and hours and hours. And so we watch those meetings evolve and we understand kind of where that product is going. We eventually pull together a marketing plan, a product marketing plan, PMP as we call it, within the walls of Garmin, which not only includes the features and functions of what we see, but it explains what the product is, how it's been engineered, how do we have benefits over the competitors, for instance. And then it goes into what we would like to see out of our deliverables. And deliverables meaning, how do we want to see it presented on the web? How do we see it presented through video? How do we see it presented through photo? Do we need to use social media ambassadors to market this, or is it going in an OEM airplane? So we need to work with an OEM like Piper, Cessna, Daher, Sears. We work with them to get this new product out there. And then our bigger Marcom team, marketing communications team, goes and shoots the video, shoots the photos, writes the copy for the web pages, then presents it back to the marketing team that I work on for our input and feedback. And then on launch day, it all magically shows up out in the field through advertising and the web and social media and everything else. So every product is a little bit different. We're working on a lot of new products right now. The team is very busy in developing marketing plans. Marketing plan I just developed for a product that will be coming out this summer was 75 pages long, but there was another marketing brief that was 2 pages long on a new product coming out. So everything is different. It all depends on what we're doing and what market it fits into. But I think the biggest thing is the question that JD asked, Professor asked earlier, which was, communication is key, right? How does engineering present the product to us? And do we have enough information to present it to our marketing people? So hopefully that answered a little bit on how we do it.
Great. Any final questions from our audience members? Oh. Well, I would like to thank our Garmin panelists for joining us today during the Business of Flight Week, and our audience members in the crowd today listening to us and allowing them to go on and explain what they do. So thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Garmin.